Hello students. In the last class we had seen about Xhtml 1.0 and how it was stricter than the HTML and XML, and its two version, that is Xhtml 1.0 strict and Xhtml 1.0 transitional. So this is the second version of Xhtml and it was known as Xhtml 2.0 and Whatwg, that is WHATWG. So some more syntax rules was added into Xhtml 1.0 and that came into existence as Xhtml 2.0. Okay, in the mid 2000, Xhtml 2.0 proposed a revolutionary and substantial change to HTML. Okay, some changes were brought into Xhtml 2.0. Okay, so the first change was backwards compatibility with HTML and Xhtml 1.0 was dropped. Okay, that means if you have written a code using HTML and some more rules you have used of Xhtml 1.0, that means changes from HTML to Xhtml 1.0 was allowed. But after writing the code in Xhtml 1.0 and then you all are getting it back to HTML, then that backward compatibility was not allowed. That means if you all are coming back from Xhtml 1.0 to HTML, then it used to show some errors. So backward compatibility was not allowed in Xhtml 2.0. Okay, and the second change was browser would become significantly less forgiving of invalid markup. That means they were less forgiving. That means we had to write up good web pages that used to follow the syntax rule. So these two changes was brought up by Xhtml 2.0. Okay, then the second point is, at around the same time, a group of developers at Opera and Mozilla formed the one more group, and that was known as WhatWG, and WhatWG stands for Web Hypertext Application Technology Working Group. Okay, this one more subgroup was formed within the W3C. That means the community was the same, and in that community one more group was formed, and that group was known as WhatWG. So what was this WhatWG doing? This group was not convinced that the W3C's embrace of XML. That means they were not happy with the W3C giving more importance to XML, and its abandon of backwards compatibility was the best way forward for the web. That means first of all, WhatWG group, the people who are working on it, they were not happy as how W3C was giving more attention to XML rather giving attention to HTML. Okay, and the second thing, as I told, that if you're writing a code in HTML, that if you're converting it into Xhtml 1.0, okay, but again backward compatibility was not working. So this backward compatibility they were not okay with. Who was not okay with? WhatWG was not. That means the code should follow the HTML rules also, and it should be follow the XHTML 1.0 also. And if it is coming back to HTML also, then also that website should run. Okay, so these two conditions was of which group? WhatWG group. Next, HTML5. Okay, HTML5, let us see what they have to say about it. By 2009, the W3C stopped work on XHTML 2.0. That means W3C stopped work on XHTML 2.0 and instead adopted the work done by WhatWG and named it HTML5. That means W3C was concentrating on which version here? XHTML 2.0 version. So they stopped working on it and they adopted the work done by which subgroup? WhatWG group. That means previously we saw, no, that they had these two conditions, and that was adopted again by W3C. Okay, it was adopted by W3C and their work they renamed it as HTML5. Okay, so let us see what are the aims of HTML5. Presently we are making use of HTML5. Okay, so there are three main aims to HTML5. What are those three main aims? Specify unambiguously how browsers should deal with invalid markup. That means if a person has written a web page with invalid syntax, how the browser should overcome that. That means how the browser will inform that to the user. Okay, that this part is not correct or this coding is not correct. So browser should clearly say as to what is wrong with that web page. Okay, so that unambiguous, that means that clarity should be there as to what is wrong in that web page or in that web browser. So that should be clearly brought out by the browsers. Okay, second point is provide an open non-proprietary programming framework via JavaScript for creating rich web applications. Okay, so web pages can be created by using HTML, it can be created using CSS, JavaScript, PHP. So using JavaScript, we should be able to create rich web applications. That means very rich web pages we should be able to create using which language? JavaScript. JavaScript in a subject we will be studying in it in the third module. Okay, so presently we are focusing on HTML. So the third point is be backwards compatible with the existing web. That means if I have created a web page using HTML, that same thing I can write it using JavaScript, I can write it using PHP, or when I've written it in PHP, I can again get it back to HTML. That means all the coding has to be same and the browser should support. So these three main aims was of HTML5. Okay. Third point is while parts of the HTML file are still being finalized, all of the major browser manufacturers have at least partially embraced HTML5. That means not all the features of HTML5s are supported by manufacturers. That means some features they have adopted and some features they have not. Okay, last point, certainly not all browsers and not all versions support every feature of HTML5. That means some features they have adopted and some features they have not. Okay, this is a small graph here to show that HTML5 support in browsers. So in this graph we can see that this orange part, so many browsers manufacturers have supported the features of HTML5. This brownish says that partial HTML5 has been supported and a few manufacturers have not supported the features of HTML5. That means they are making use of basic HTML. They are not making use of HTML5. So this was about HTML5 and XHTML 2.0 and Whatwg. So in the next class, we will be coming to a simple HTML document. Okay, thank you.